with another video, and this time it's not going to be a review or anything of the sorts, but rather a presentation, introduction. Vorstellen is what I would say in German. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure what to call it in English. Shameless self-advertisement probably wouldn't be too far off, to be honest, because this is something that I've been involved with for quite a while. Now, in the past, I've done a transcription of the Art of Defense by Roworth, 1804 edition. And what just came out is something that I did together with my two very dear friends, Martin de Jong and Anouk Postillon. And it is fighting with the Klewang. We took an original source from 1937, so fairly late, and just tried to give a handy package, an introduction into fighting with the Klewang. Now, first question you might have is, what is a Klewang? Well, a Klewang is this. Or maybe a bit more iconic, it is this. Now, depending on your context, you might know this as an American cutlass, but the origins of this saber are for fighting on land. It is a saber that was specifically developed for the Royal Netherlands East India Army, the KNIL. It is a specific type of Dutch saber, even though by the name you maybe wouldn't think it is. Klewang is also a different type of sword, but there's a reason for that, something which we go into in this handy little book here. Now, what we did is, as I said, we took an original source from 1937, the VOVBW, and that is Voorschrift voor de Opleiding in het Vechten met de Blanke Wapens. In English you could call it probably regulation for the training in fighting with bladed weapons. Now that is quite a mouthful, hence fighting with the Klewang, much shorter. Now, the original doesn't only consist of how to train a soldier into fencing with the carbine and Klewang, but it is also about carbine and bayonet and rifle and bayonet. It's a very handy source, it's very to the point. There's not much flourishing about. It's very much on how do we get a soldier to be able to fight in as short amount of time as possible, really. Which makes it a good candidate for, you know, a first introduction to how do you actually fence with it. Not all of this book is the original transcription, of course. It consists of 4 parts, basically, and I'm gonna work from the back here. So at the very end, the last part is the transcription of the original Dutch source. We tried to keep it as close to the original as was practical, basically. The original is rather small, has some oddities in its formatting, and we just tried to make that a bit more consistent and just change it where necessary to facilitate readability, really. Because it can be, at times, a bit harsh on the eyes. If you get used to it, it's fine, but the first transcript we did was like literally 1-to-1, and when people who weren't used to it saw it, they found it quite harsh on the eyes, so some more work went into it, and I think it is really better now, I have to say. Now, after that, or rather before that, if you go from the front, we have the plates. All the plates that are in the original source are also in this book here. Keith was kind enough to enhance it a bit because the original is not only tiny but also yellowed, but I think they came out great. Because not everyone can read Dutch, even though I can recommend it, it's a lovely language. We also have our own translation before that. That one, again, is also as close to the original as is practical. But you have to keep in mind, every translation is by its very nature also an interpretation. There are just some things you can't translate one-to-one, or maybe things you do not want to translate one-to-one, maybe things you would just phrase differently today. You know, these kinds of decisions we had to make. In the beginning, the very first part of this book is an introduction that we made, where we just try to give historical information, context. What is a Klewang? Why is a Klewang? Right? What was the context for needing this type of weapon that late in history? And also, after that, then, what does that mean for what we do today? What does that mean for training the Klewang in HEMA today? Because in our hall, when we fence today, we do not quite have the same circumstances necessary than they had back in the day in their specific context, which is always good to keep in mind. And we also go into, you know, why did we transcribe the VOVBW the way we did? Why did we translate things the way we did? And, you know, these kind of things. So we really tried to make this a practical, short introduction that is as to the point as the original is, really. So I, for my part, am quite happy to finally have it in my hand. I'm looking forward to be working with this and not just my own printout from the transcript that I have. I have committed to doing some videos on the art of defense first, but I'm also very much looking forward on doing some things with this. And if you are interested in, you know, fencing with the carbine and bayonet or rifle and bayonet, or, you know, fencing with the Klewang, we do have nylon trainers by now from Black Fencer, which are very nice. And we're also working on steel trainers. So if you are interested in that, maybe give this a read. Cheers.